When it comes to Chinese philosophical works, it's all about going back to the original classics of Chinese philosophy. When we dive into these texts, are we going to find a bunch of conceptual jargon and logical deductions? Nope, instead, we're in for a treat of vivid imagery and big ideas. Take Zhuangzi, for example. It's not just a philosophical work, it's also a literary gem. As we flip through the pages of Zhuangzi, with its inner chapters, outer chapters, and all the rest, what's the vibe we get? According to Mr. Lu Xun, 1881–1936, Zhuangzi's, 4th century BCE, writings are like a vast ocean, full of diverse styles and the work of a late Zhou philosopher, unmatched by any. That's Lu Xun's take on the literary value of Zhuangzi. It's not just any kind of philosophy, it's a representation of Taoist philosophy, packed with vivid imagery and grand concepts, without all the heavy conceptual reasoning and logical deductions. It's got some amazing stories too, like Ding the Butcher Carves an Ox. These stories are not just vivid and imaginative, they also offer a deep understanding of the Tao, and have become timeless classics. So, how do we approach these original classics of Chinese philosophy? We read between the lines. Every line of text, between the lines, within the words and phrases. If you don't dig into what's hidden within the lines of Zhuangzi, how can you really grasp Taoist philosophy? Similarly, the Tao Te Ching, 4th century BCE, is also chock full of vivid imagery and grand concepts, with 5,000 words and 81 chapters. What's it all about? Laozi's understanding of the Tao, not rationally deduced. And that's how, from this kind of Chinese philosophical, approach to discussing the Tao, Chinese science took shape. So, there's this thing called traditional Chinese medicine, and how do they figure out what's wrong with you? They do it through observation. And you know what? Western science is all about observation and experiments too, right? So, what does observation mean in Western science? It means measuring stuff. If you haven't measured anything, it's like you haven't really observed it at all. If you're into physics, you'll learn right off the bat that it's all about measurements. There are set standards for measurements, right? Like, what's the deal with length? How do we measure it? Well, we've got units for that, like 1 meter, right? So, when you crack open a physics textbook, they'll start off by explaining this stuff. How do we define 1 meter? It's first defined theoretically, by measuring the distance from the equator to the North Pole along the Paris meridian, and then dividing that by 10 million. That theoretical definition is the foundation for measuring length. Basically, all observation boils down to measurement. Without measurement, there's no real observation, just a bunch of subjective feelings. And how can you build a whole field of physics on subjective feelings? You can't. That's why observation is all about measurement. This idea comes from Western philosophy, and it all started with the Pythagorean view of the universe. So, what's Chinese philosophy all about? It's basically about having a gut feeling for how things naturally work. What's observation then? Well, it's all about perception, not just measuring stuff. When a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner puts 3 fingers on your pulse, what are they measuring? Nothing, really. They're just feeling, sensing all the different pulse patterns. Keep in mind, measurement is very cut and dry, so Western science is easier to pick up than Chinese science. Chinese science is a real tough nut to crack. I was thinking of joining a traditional Chinese medicine clinic, but then I backed out because you have to shadow the master and copy prescriptions for 10 years. You don't need to do that when studying physics. If you skip classes, you can just hit the physics textbook and get it, even solve the problems. But studying the traditional Chinese medicine textbook won't get you far. What's that all about? It's about honing your craft. Folks, traditional Chinese medicine is a mix of philosophy and craftsmanship, while Western medicine is philosophy mixed with Western-style technology. Technology isn't the same as craftsmanship. You've got to learn craftsmanship by following the master, there's no other way. Throughout the learning process, you've got to really understand and gain experience. Experience comes from the heart, and then it's put into practice. So, that saying, "De Xining Shou," is spot on. It's not much different from artistic activities. Take playing the piano, for example. You learn from a teacher, and once you've got it down, you can technically play the piece, right? But when you play it, it's just dull and boring, even if every note is right. The technique is solid, but why? Because playing the piano isn't just about using your hands, it's about touching those 88 keys with your soul. When your soul is in it, it comes from the heart and is applied by the hands. Real traditional Chinese medicine practitioners are like miracle workers. They've got amazing intuition and a deep sense of understanding. When they feel your pulse with 3 fingers, it's like having all the fancy medical equipment, like MRI, right there. This is a skill, folks. Let's not let it die out, otherwise it would be a big loss for the Chinese people. Chinese medicine is rooted in Chinese philosophy and has a rich history. 2 standout classics are the Huangdi Neijing and the Shanghan Lun. Pretty impressive, right? Zhuangzi, died 219 CE, was quite something. There are loads of practitioners, but let me tell you, becoming a real traditional Chinese medicine pro is no walk in the park. That's why we've got so many dodgy doctors out there. When there are too many of those, it makes you question the whole traditional Chinese medicine deal. But let me tell you, traditional Chinese medicine is the real deal. It's a real system. Just because there are a bunch of dodgy doctors doesn't mean the medicine itself is no good. It's just tough to train up proper traditional Chinese medicine practitioners. When it comes to training them, we need to get back to our traditional Chinese education system, instead of churning them out in classrooms like a factory. It's time for a change. These days, a lot of folks are claiming to be experts in both traditional Chinese and Western medicine, but I wouldn't put too much stock in that. There's this one doctor who's all about promoting himself, saying he's got a handle on both traditional Chinese and Western medicine. But let me tell you, if someone's claiming to be a master of both, they're probably not really nailing either. You're either all in on Western medicine or all in on traditional Chinese medicine. Don't give me that talk about blending the two. Who should be leading the charge in combining traditional Chinese and Western medicine? The patients. It should be all about what works best for them. When I voice these opinions, it really gets some folks riled up. See, these days in China, a bunch of doctors are talking up their skills in both traditional Chinese and Western medicine, but they're just regurgitating Western medical ideas and still dishing out traditional Chinese medicine. I went to this hospital in Shanghai that's all about integrating traditional Chinese and Western medicine. I walk in, and the doctor actually takes my pulse, then hands me a bunch of lab test forms. They want to test my pee and blood. I'm thinking, why'd you even bother with the pulse if you're just gonna order a bunch of tests? After the tests, the doctor comes back and says, "Check out these lab results. This is the magic of Western medicine. Anyone can see from these results what the issue is." Then, the doctor prescribes traditional Chinese medicine, which really caught me off guard. Without that gut feeling, intuition, creativity, and understanding, how can you practice traditional Chinese medicine? The real deal traditional Chinese medicine practitioners are like wizards. But being a wizard is no walk in the park, and there are plenty of average practitioners out there, which gives traditional Chinese medicine a bad rap. The Chinese understanding of the Tao of Heaven follows a different path from Western rational discourse. this is called Chinese philosophy. What are the principles of this understanding? There are two: first, the unity of heaven and humanity; second, the principle of the middle way. The term unity of heaven and humanity has two layers of meaning. The first layer refers to nature when mentioning heaven, and to human society when referring to humanity. This unity implies the integration of the natural world and human society, which is the first principle of Chinese philosophy. Therefore, it does not engage in rational transcendental speculation that goes beyond empirical experience regarding these realities. The unity of heaven and humanity also means heaven-human resonance, indicating that discussions of the natural world also relate to human affairs, establishing a connection between the two. So when a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner faces a patient, they also embody the principle of heaven-human resonance and unity of heaven and humanity. The Tao of heaven exists within your body. We perceive it and understand it, then we may detect a deviation. The second principle is the middle way. The principle of the middle way is a fundamental characteristic of Chinese cultural spirit. For Chinese people, how is the distinction between right and wrong understood? It is not a dichotomy of right and wrong, or black and white. What is correct? Correctness means being just right; deviation from what is appropriate is wrong. Both excess and deficiency are incorrect. This is the middle way principle. Having learned Western logic, the influence of Western thought on the Chinese mindset over the past century has led us to emphasize a binary opposition of right and wrong. This directly contradicts Chinese thinking, which does not recognize a strict opposition of correct and incorrect, but rather distinguishes between appropriate and inappropriate. This is what we call the middle way. The second layer of meaning of heaven-human unity refers to the Tao of heaven, while human signifies the lives of the people. The Tao of heaven exists within the lives of the people. These two fundamental characteristics of Chinese philosophy define the nature of Chinese science. What is a disease? It is a matter of excess or deficiency. What does it mean to treat a disease? It means returning to what is appropriate, returning to balance. This is how we understand treatment. So, when Western medicine examines a person and finds nothing wrong, figuratively speaking, the body appears completely transparent. You know what I mean. Yet, within 2 months, pancreatitis or pancreatic cancer may arise. When Western medicine declares that there is nothing wrong, a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner can diagnose just by feeling the pulse, knowing that there is definitely a problem that requires timely intervention and adjustment using traditional Chinese medicine methods. The whole deal with health checkups in China has totally changed. It's like a big trend now, almost like a fancy spa treatment. People do it every year, and it's all about Western medicine. It's turned into a whole industry, you know. But hey, the thing is, the Chinese have always been into this health checkup thing. You know what it's all about? Before the winter solstice, you'd go see a traditional Chinese medicine doc, get your pulse checked, and then they'd hook you up with some kind of herbal remedy. For us Chinese, health checkups are all about this idea of stopping sickness before it even starts in traditional Chinese medicine. It's about catching and fixing problems before they turn into full-blown illnesses. The best time to boost your body is before the winter solstice. So, before that time, you take this herbal remedy, and that's the whole point of the health checkup. After the traditional Chinese medicine doc checks your pulse, they'd give you a prescription for this herbal remedy. It's not just about boosting your body, it's about getting things in balance. But now, these herbal remedies have gotten crazy expensive. Why? Because it's all about making a buck. They throw in pricey stuff like cordyceps, ginseng, and other fancy herbs, making it super costly. It's not about balancing anymore. If a person hasn't reached a pretty balanced state, they can't just boost themselves up. They need to get their body's imbalances in check first. Now, these herbal remedies have all turned into tonics, just another commercial product. It's a real shame, you know. Getting a checkup in traditional Chinese medicine is important, that's my advice. What should you check first? See if you don't have some untreatable disease, you know. Go and get it done. Don't bother with a checkup for a curable illness, and only go when you're feeling unwell. Illness is just a normal thing. What is good health anyway? It's the ability to forget about being sick. That's the philosophy of Lu Xun. There's no such thing as perfect health, there are always factors at play, so make some adjustments. The idea in traditional Chinese medicine is to come out of the checkup and find that everything's all good, right? That's it. I might be a bit stubborn, so I don't usually get checkups, but what do I hope for once a year? A traditional Chinese medicine checkup. It's good to keep things in balance, and the theories of traditional Chinese medicine also affect the diet of Chinese people, eating different foods according to the seasons and times. It also helps to keep different parts of our body in sync, right? Using traditional Chinese medicine in our daily diet is the way to go. So, I want to talk about the differences between traditional Chinese and Western medicine. I'm thinking of writing a serious article about it in the future. Why? Well, to help save traditional Chinese medicine, keep it from being forgotten, and carry on our ancestors' legacy, you know? But hey, I'm not an expert. I'm not a practicing traditional Chinese medicine doctor or a specialist in the field. Still, I want to share some philosophical thoughts to raise awareness, you know? We really need to save traditional Chinese medicine because it's getting weaker, and that's a big worry. It could work out like this: if traditional Chinese medicine didn't work, they could turn to Western medicine, and vice versa. Chinese folks could be so lucky. What a lucky bunch, right? So, that's why we need to save traditional Chinese medicine. There are some illnesses that traditional Chinese medicine can't treat, just like there are some that Western medicine can't handle. Like, you can't expect traditional Chinese medicine to fix your dental problems, for example. For instance, when it comes to dealing with my high blood pressure, Western medicine is the way to go. If you've got primary hypertension, Western medicine can diagnose it, and then it's just a matter of remembering to take your high blood pressure meds every day to keep it in check, and you can still live a long and healthy life. That's the beauty of Western medicine. Let's also talk about stents. Using stents excessively is a whole other story. But how many lives have been saved by stents? Can traditional Chinese medicine pull that off? No way. Traditional Chinese medicine can't handle these kinds of things, which is why there's a saying in traditional Chinese medicine: doctors can cure diseases, but not fate. That's up to the patient. This is where traditional Chinese medicine falls short. Take a car accident, for example. If there were no Western medicine ICU, everyone involved would have been goners, don't you think? It's best to avoid the ICU. When should you go there? In the case of a young person who's been seriously injured in a car accident and is in critical condition, there's no way around it, they need the ICU. Faced with this kind of situation, traditional Chinese medicine is at a loss, don't you agree? The ICU springs into action, giving blood when necessary, using medication to get your heart pumping, and that's that. We owe a lot to Western medicine. How many people would have died without it? But we can't do without traditional Chinese medicine either. There are plenty of illnesses that Western medicine can't do a thing about, and all they can do is tell you to live with the illness and help manage your symptoms with some meds, but there's no cure. In these cases, you might as well see a traditional Chinese medicine doctor. Traditional Chinese medicine uses its understanding of diseases and the human body to help you heal, and the results are often impressive. After you recover, if you go back to a Western doctor, they'll be shocked. How did you get better, they'll wonder. In their eyes, you shouldn't have gotten better, you know. But you did. That's why someone once joked with me, Western medicine lets people die with clarity, while traditional Chinese medicine lets people live in a fog. It's a funny saying, but there's some truth to it. Because according to the logic and theory of Western medicine and its understanding of diseases and the wealth of medical cases, this person is definitely a goner, you know. So, they're out of options. But then they go to a traditional Chinese medicine doctor, and they work their magic, you know. Every time this kind of miracle happens, it boosts the reputation of traditional Chinese medicine. So now, everyone's debating between traditional Chinese and Western medicine. But in my opinion, there's no need for debate, let them work together. Integration happens in practice, inspiring and helping each other in clinical settings. If traditional Chinese medicine can't handle something, they send you to a Western doctor to sort it out. If Western medicine can't handle something, they send you to a traditional Chinese medicine doctor to give it a shot. That's the integration of traditional Chinese and Western medicine.